All right, and we are live right now. Awesome. Welcome everyone to Open Office Hours. This used to be a weekly show that we would put on to answer your questions, but now we're switching it to a monthly kind of like lesson with Q&A as well. So we're still gonna keep, that open Q&A for any questions that you have on projects you're working on, or if you're launching a startup, or if you're working on a product team. Like, we're here to help you get unstuck with anything you're working on. But we're also here to talk about specific topics. So today we're going to talk about pirate metrics, or the R model. I think we use 3 A's instead of 2 actually in ours, but yeah, so today Andrew's going to walk through it, and then later on we'll be open to questions, and that's that. So that's all I have from me. So Andrew, I don't know, I guess I could introduce myself. My name is Jacob Miller. I'm the marketing and brand manager at Headway, and I help kind of put on events like this and live streams, and help manage questions and get people connected with the resources they need. So I'll hand it over to Andrew, and he can kind of go from there.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. As he mentioned, today we're going into a new format here, and we're talking about the pirate metrics. We've talked about it on this format before, as it's come up, and just thought it would be important for us to do a little bit deeper dive and talk a little bit about some of the reasoning behind the pirate metrics, and go through some examples, and then go over some any questions and how it might apply to what you're doing, and perhaps work through how we might use this model if we were working together. So really quick, Andrew Verboncouer, I'm the partner and CEO at Headway. You can connect with me online on these forums. And just a bit about Headway for those that are new and that haven't tuned into the show before. Our mission is to bring entrepreneurial ideas to market and keep them there. And so today, we're excited to talk about this growth framework that helps you really keep it there, like figure out where to start, where to focus your efforts when you're thinking about your product, and what to do next. Of all the bugs and features that come up, how can you start to think through what's the most important thing for your team to focus on, design, development, product strategy wise. And so this helps create alignment on your team. And just the subtext here, we help founders and innovation teams launch new ventures through product strategy, design, and development. And that's startups looking to launch new products, that's corporations that want to innovate. So without further ado, we'll get into the pirate metrics here, and we'll talk about, think like a pirate, and this is part of the framework that was developed and created by Dave McClure, who was the founder of 500 Startups. He's also now moved on to Practical Venture Capital, and really just use this to not only product management, but also to align your teams. And there's a way to apply this, that I learned through Jeff Godhealth in some early sessions he did with Lean UX, and how you use this model to pick a metric and then focus on it. And so we'll talk a little bit about the model, and then hopefully get into some examples with y'all around where you can start applying it. So before digging in, we'll talk a little bit about the 3 A's and 3 R's. So just introducing the model. A is for awareness. Is your brand recognizable with your target audience? Does your reputation precede you, right? If you said Nike to a group of runners, very unlikely that anyone has not heard of them, right? Their awareness is very large. Their brand recognition is huge. Acquisition, so obtaining new customers that sign up through early adopter forums, beta lists. Like, how are you acquiring someone's interest? Through forums. That could be even, in this age, it could even be through social media. It could be through followers. It could be through YouTube. How are you acquiring people? Activation. So once obtained, like how do customers create accounts? How do they add their content? Like, what do you consider a customer to be activated at? And these metrics will depend per I guess product and what you consider someone to be activated on, right? If it's a free app, somebody would be activated if they filled out their profile and they got access. If it was a content app or something where you needed to onboard a user, you wanted to gather some information from them, like let's say through an onboarding assessment, you wouldn't consider them activated unless they went through that assessment. And so there's different spins and different angles that you can start to look at these metrics through that'll help you understand, like, how can I think about activation, and when is my customer truly activated where I can then begin delivering value to them. The first R, and these three R's will get interchanged a lot. It depends on, the product. It depends on who your customer is, and it depends on who your business model is. For example, a lot of the enterprise customers or B2B products that are out there, SaaS products, revenue will be before retention and before referral. But when you think about consumer products, revenue typically will come last if there's some sort of freemium where you're basically trying to get someone pushed through this funnel and then onto, into a paying customer where they're more of a premium or a pro account. So retention is all about, how customers are coming back, how often they're coming back, what they're coming back for, and just making sure that this is a good metric to understand, like whether or not you are delivering value in the eyes of your customer, or are they continuing to come back? And this is where a lot of folks and a lot of startups end up really wanting to focus, and there becomes like this dichotomy between, as an early stage startup, do I focus on new customer acquisition? Do I focus on retaining the customers I do have? And the hard answer that you'll get from a lot of people and us is like, it's both, right? We have to continue to acquire customers at a predictable rate, and we also need to retain the customers we do have. The next one is referral. So are your customers referring other people? Are they creating customers for you? This is what Seth Godin calls remarkable. Do you have a remarkable product where like you can't help but tell other people that are experiencing the problem about the solution you came across, whether that was a product or a service or something that you're almost evangelizing and saying like, hey, this has really helped me do X. You should definitely check it out. And then the last one, revenue. Are people paying for it? How much? Are there different tiers, right? Where maybe there's an evolution of revenue, and you can begin to grow that revenue over time through customer lifetime value. Essentially, just understanding, if it is a repeatable purchase or something that's a subscription, how long are people churning and staying around? Are they staying around for 8 months, 12 months, a year? And how do you impact that revenue number by really focusing on retention? Like, how do you continue adding value through the life cycle of whatever journey that they're on? So as we strip it back, we start to think about it and wanted to represent and just show that, most things in life are not binary. Like you either have a customer or you don't. But as you dig into the details, and this is why this framework is so good, is as you dig into the details, you learn that everything is like this stepped tiered structure. Everything's a funnel, right? When you think about your product and somebody coming in, learning about your brand up top here and going all the way down through to revenue, there becomes a series of steps that you can start to understand the journey they're on, how you're adding value, if you're adding value to what subset. And, if you were to visualize this as a funnel, just like this, you would see, hey, a lot of people are aware, a subset of those people or a percentage of those people are acquired and actually are interested in what your offer is. Of that, even a fewer amount of them convert and actually activate their accounts. Of those that activate their accounts, even less of them are retained and start to come back week over week, month over month, whatever that is. And then even less of those refer people, and even less of the people that refer people turn into revenue. And so as you see, like acquiring customers is just the front door to your entire funnel. It's not, if you were to acquire customers, this doesn't mean you can build a solid business. It gives you a great chance, a great pool to work with. It fills the top of the funnel for you. But as you think about revenue, there's a long journey and a big disconnect between acquiring a customer and their intent that, hey, they're interested in this product, and actually producing revenue from them, not just one time, but ongoing, right? We talked about lifetime value a little bit, and that's how much one customer that's acquired is actually worth to your company. And all of those metrics are really important as you think about building a business. But it's important to really look at this through a funnel, and these percentages are just rough percentages of the previous phase, right? These aren't absolute. If we were to do absolute percentages, this is like 2 to 3%, 5% maybe, depending on your product. But each one is a percentage of that previous step, and so you see that at each step you're dropping off lots and lots of customers. And so with this model, it helps you to understand, if you're able to get these absolute values and also these relative values to the previous step through your instrumentation. Tools we use include segment, intercom, amplitude. there's a bunch of other tools that we use that slipping my mind right now to really help. Mixpanel is the other one that really helps to visualize this funnel of onboarding and retention and value that you're providing. But these tools will help give you the information you need in order to make decisions around where your product team focuses. And so in this case, if we were to say, part of the lean UX model is taking what we have here in referrals and the pirate metrics here and say, hey, we really want to boost referrals from 23% of our customers recommending people, or 23% of the people that are retained recommending people, to 50%. Right, and then you come up with a problem statement that says, hey, we believe that in order to increase bottom line revenue, we're going to increase in this little bit in the weeds, not really, it's related, obviously startups, but like your referrals will directly impact your CAC, your CAC, or your customer acquisition cost. So the more referrals you get from people for free, the less you pay to acquire new customers, right? And so you're kind of you're trying to incentivize and provide enough value where people will start to do free marketing for you and fill up this bucket of acquisition. But when you're referring people, when you're revisiting this model, say, hey, if we believe that if we're able to increase our acquisition costs costs through referrals, that equals in a 50% or a 25% increase here results in X amount business value for us. Then you align your team around, okay, you pick the metric that's referral, and then you go down and say, okay, do we want all of our customers to be able to refer, or is there a subset or a cohort of customers we want to target more? And if it is, if you do have one customer, you would take that and outline their persona and say, okay, well, what things about them do we know? Do we know why they're referring people? What's the trigger for them to go and refer somebody? And typically there is like at that point is a, what do you call it? Like typically before you go into solutioning around, hey, we're gonna, roll out a, I'm trying to, it's escaping me the term. I'm gonna roll out a reward program or a referral bonus or something that would incentivize users. Before you get to that, I think the lean UX model would have you identify the user and who the persona that you're serving, and then actually go talk to them and say like, hey, what do people want in order to refer people? Is it because we're not adding enough value that they're not referring them? Is it because it's not easy enough for them to share, right? Could we easily add a button to our app that says, hey, invite friends, and get XYZ? Is it, there's other platforms out there that people don't want something in exchange. They maybe just want recognition. And so Dribbble did this really well early on. It was invite only, where every single person that would invite somebody would show up as, drafted by Jacob Miller, drafted by Andrew Verboncouer on that person's profile. And so you use referrals as a way to really vouch and build a solid network of designers that now is millions and millions of designers. So as you go through and, figure out what to build in service of this referral goal, you would go talk to those customers and say, what are the outcomes the customers want in order for us to add enough value for them to refer more people, right? Is it an incentive program? What are our competitors doing, right? And you start to dig and gather intel, and from there you move into, hey, well, actually just this share button and this invite friend button and this like custom code that makes it feel personalized. Just that alone will help move the bar for them. But then you move it into the features that you're planning. And let me see if I can pull up a better model here really quick on Lean UX that I don't have in this deck. Just to portray the framework. I know we have some templates and things as well. Yeah, here's a good example. Actually, that's not. Sorry. I'm trying to find a good representation that would help. Yeah, I'm surprisingly not finding one off a quick search. So I think let me pull one of ours up real quick. Sorry, I'm not able to share. 1 second. All right, so this is kind of stripped down. Are you able to see this, Jacob? Yeah. So this is a stripped down version that shows you kind of this evolution of pirate metric. So you see that here kind of represented 2 A's, 3 R's. I don't know if you can see all that text. And essentially, moving from what metric are we focusing on into who's the user or the persona that we're focusing on that amount of change for. It could be all users, it could be for the platform. From there, what do we need to, what value do they need to be provided, or what's their perception of how this would look, to then evolve it into what features might support that. And then from there, we get into creating hypotheses around, really combining, hey, in order to have this outcome for this user and provide this value, we believe this feature will get us there. And then you go into like a prioritization matrix that really helps you understand, hey, of all these ideas we came up with around referrals, which of these help us make the most impact the fastest? And so you're really ranking it on a 2x2 of level of effort versus level of impact and how much it would change that. And so for easy things like buttons, that's no big deal. But if you were a startup and you were saying, you did the research, you talked to customers, you went through this process and you understood that, hey, we actually need to entice people to refer people. We're going to create a referral program. So you'd have to go out and search and say, are there any referral programs out there that we might want to create that would do tracking for us, build versus buy type of approach. And then for the next one, be able to, be able to say, hey, well, the level of effort for us to implement that, if we're going to do it custom, we're going to get dev involved, we're going to get design team involved, we're going to estimate that out. It's actually going to be 4 weeks of our product team's time to get this thing, into our app and functioning. Is that worth it? Is that the quickest thing you can do to try and impact that metric? And in most cases, it's usually multiple things, right? So you might want to test that or delay that while, one thing that we've been doing, and we were just sharing this internally, is leveraging Intercom to really skin onboarding experiences. And so one of the things you could do is use a tool that's already in your platform and just get creative and say, hey, we believe that if we even just call our users to act and ask for referrals and say, hey, we're looking to help more people just like you, know anyone that'd be a great fit, you'd also both get, a free month of whatever it is we're offering. Like you could do that through a pop-up modal in Intercom or any in-app chat message, and try and see like, hey, if we ask them directly, will that convert? Right, and use the tools you have. And so through this exercise and through Lean UX, and kind of pairing that with a business metric in the Pirate model, you're able to try and understand and loop your team around, how can we get creative? How can we try and get the results with the least amount of effort, versus thinking that, hey, we have to cut right to, developing our own program that tracks users, tracks referrals, that incentivizes them through, gift cards or through XYZ. Are there easier ways that you can do it that take less effort and actually get you more results?
Awesome. Yeah, when you shared your screen before, the text wasn't showing up. I was seeing all the shapes, but I wasn't sure if that was, if the text was hidden or what's going on at the screen share.
Yeah, I didn't.
But
yeah,
I didn't want to stop you in the middle of your conversation, but yeah, we couldn't see any of the copy that was on that Figma document for some reason.
Gotcha.
That's okay. We can always add that in and re-edit this and stuff. So awesome. So if anybody has any questions about any of these metrics and how it applies to you, or if you have any other questions about something you're working on this week, whether it's a personal project, or if you're a startup, or if you work on a product team, and how these apply to you, we're happy to answer those. But I do have a question that I found on Reddit that I thought was a good one that we could walk through. And this one was, how long do you spend in market research for an early stage startup? And this person shares, I'm currently holding empathy interviews with the hopes of interviewing 50 to 100 of my target customers. However, I plan to release an MVP and just want to know how long I should spend in market research in my earlier stages. I'm 4 months in right now before launching my MVP. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of startups are maybe asking different questions, right? Like, how can I launch faster? And I think for you, a good thing to think about and what we look for in interviews is really saturation. And so what we found, I think Steve Krug, who's big into user research, says like you can learn 85 to 90% of all you need to learn about usability issues with your app with 5 interviews, and it kind of diminishing returns from there. I would say with market research, it's probably between, if you have one customer, it's probably between 10 and 20-ish users where you're really starting to see those patterns and see that saturation. And for us, that's kind of what we try to get to, where we can almost predict what people are going to say, how they're going to respond. We've heard this story before, essentially, where we're going along and there's nothing really new or nothing new that surprises us. And it's at that point we typically recommend you to figure out, okay, let's go back and let's synthesize all these interviews. What are the patterns? Where do we see the opportunities? Where how do customers think about solving this problem now? And then try to craft what we think is a value prop of where our product or service or offering might enter into the equation, and then come up with, a lot of times we'll do early landing page tests where we're writing the copy of what we think the value prop is for that customer that we're serving, and then creating potential solution screens that take it out of just reading and try to make it more impactful, where people can see themselves using it. They could see the value, and we call them hero screens because really they're the screen that gets people to buy and really connects the dots between what is this and how it might make me better, right? And so bridging that gap between, hey, this is just a feature, to I can imagine my life better because of this app, and here's a screen that helps tell that story. And so to answer the question, I would say, rather than thinking of your MVP launch as something that's you're waiting to get in front of customers, try and bring that MVP to customers now. If you've already been 4 months in on your journey, try to get those things in front of customers just to get feedback, right? You're using it as a test, and try to understand, does this create value in their mind? Is this similar to anything else that they've seen now that they've seen some sort of solution? And really try to, think of your journey as always launching, right? There's no big one big moment where, hey, your MVP launch and everybody signed up, right? You think of Airbnb, they were years and years before they had, widespread adoption, and before you said Airbnb and people knew what you meant. I think that's true for a lot of companies. And so trying to get your MVP into, hey, what can you go create, and think about your MVP as what's an asset I can get in front of somebody and gather and learn from how they perceive it, right? Because what we're trying to do with new ventures is get out of our mind and get into our customer's mind and say, how are they really looking at this? What are the competitors to this? Why wouldn't they do it? Where do they see the most value in kind of what we're creating? And oftentimes, before we go to pre-launch, you'll also try to create some sort of offer that takes what you've learned in those problem interviews, and maybe takes some of those early, we call them simulated shopping or early interviews, and try and put a price forward and see, where does this sit in regard of value that somebody else, if there's another app they're using, is it similar in value and similar in cost for them? Is it a lot more value but less cost? Where are you sitting in the market as it pertains to what solutions are out there already? And so I think taking your MVP, trying to chop it up and get early feedback sooner than later is always going to be better for you than waiting to launch your perfect MVP. And you'll see that advice from a lot of folks. But we always talk about like being firm on vision but flexible on details. I think there's a quote from Jeff Bezos, but being able to really challenge yourself and say like, I know the impact I want to make, I know where I want to go, I know that like the vision I have for this product or offering or service can really help people, but it's trying to make it real and trying to go from this what if to like, will people actually engage this way, and will somebody buy? And so trying to get your MVP from kind of months and months away to, hey, what can I learn with a landing page or with a prototype or even with a payment screen, using Stripe or something, like, will people actually pay for what you're proposing? And for what we've learned is it's all about the message and it's all about the value prop and how you're conveying it, to the customer. And that shows them that in those interviews that you're talking about, I think Jacob, you mentioned 50 to 100 interviews or something like that. Like in your interviews, what you're really trying to say and show your customers is like, hey, I understand you, right? I've built enough empathy. I use the words that you use. I've been in your position. I know what it's like. I know how much better you'll be because I'm serving you this way or because of this app or because of this offering. And that's what you're trying to convey in a landing page, right? And so I think thinking about it as something where it's more malleable and you're less tied to months and months and months of work before you show somebody and where you get a little bit resistant. I don't know, hopefully that answered it. I think I was trying to think through the question a little bit as I was going, but.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Yeah, I think, just thinking about like, if there's a way to provide value before we build anything, that's definitely like better than, like you said, spending money on something. And you could do research forever, and at the same time, research is continuous. And I know that kind of reminds me, later this month we'll be having a conversation with Teresa Torres. She just released a book called Continuous Discovery Habits, and it's about how do you continuously, discover the value that your customers are looking for that you don't provide yet, or whether it's within your current product or whether it's a new product that you could build to complement that, or maybe it's a whole new market, who knows. Actually, I can probably just share. Actually, I'll wait. We have one more question, and I'll share the upcoming events. But if you're interested in learning more about that, it'll be on Headway on our YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. There's a scheduled live stream for that conversation with Teresa. It'll be really, really good. This next question we've had before, but I still think it's something to bring up, and I think the context is always good. But how do we find the right co-founder with the technical skills to develop our platform? So there's two people in this scenario. They both have business backgrounds. And they have a product idea, but they don't have resources to pay anybody yet. But they're looking for someone to hopefully partner with them to be a co-founder on the technical aspect. So they're kind of wondering, does anybody have any advice regarding what type of professional we should be looking for, and maybe a link to they're asking for like maybe job description templates, stuff like that, like if they were going to do a posting. But what are your thoughts on someone finding a technical co-founder that has a development background, or or should they look to an agency? Should they look to no code as an option? Should they learn no code? Like, I guess, what are your thoughts on that for people that are business minded, have a great product idea, but they don't have technical expertise or maybe the cash flow yet to hire somebody?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we tried to address too as we think about like Wisconsin Startup Week last year. There was a talk that even part of the metrics, the pirate metrics here that we brought up in of like, how would you think about validating this? And, as when you launch a startup, right, like you have to go on this journey of storytelling essentially, where we talk about this in our upcoming Founders Mindset series, but essentially this standpoint where you always need to be selling, right? And so as you think about selling your idea, your vision, your traction, like how interested the market is in certain things, you need to try and build up evidence that's going to help build confidence for your team and for investors and for customers. Essentially, like getting proof that people care about it and they want to solve something is usually most important. So our other talk about why you don't need developers to launch your startup. Developers are super valuable. They can really help your startup succeed and be successful. And I think, through that, we talk about using landing pages and using using different tools that are out there and available to go test something, to build up confidence that one, somebody should join you on this effort and focus on the tech side, and two, that your idea is going to resonate with the market. And so I think a big part of it is trying to gather that evidence and not feeling like you need to wait for a co-founder, because especially in this market today, I know we're hiring. I know a lot of our clients are hiring. There's a lot of opportunities out there for people to join anything, things that are proven, things that come with high, salary and compensation. This is really an employee's market at this point, and especially in tech. And so I think like you building up a business case for why people are interested in what your vision is, and really thinking about it from that business standpoint is important for you to sell to people to join you. It's important for you to sell to customers, and why, why you use case studies and all of those things, and also important for you to tell to investors, right? And so that story of proving that somebody wants what you have a vision for, and that you're starting to iterate and you're getting traction and people care, you're getting signups, you're focusing on the top of funnel here where people are interested in what you're doing, they're signing up for a newsletter or an early beta list or something. They might have even prepaid you in some cases if you have a paid app. And so having that traction to go to somebody is going to help you attract the right person once you get into a conversation with them. So finding, I think, the right co-founder with the technical skills is going to depend on, what skills do you need to get you there, right? A lot of our advice for early stage startups is like speed to iteration and speed to market is what kills. There's a saying in sports like speed kills. So if you've ever seen anybody on the football field or on the baseball field beat out a pitch at first base, or somebody turn a corner on the football field and like outrun somebody, just, the foot speed is just crazy. Like that advantage is so unique. And so our recommendation is usually like pick tools that maybe you can use, or even, find somebody with tools that can iterate really quickly, or find a way where you can serve your customer without this automated tech. You'll be able to build up that evidence much faster to actually close sales, to close revenue, and tell a much more compelling story to anybody that you're trying to sell on your idea, whether that's joining your team, whether that's backing your team with capital, whether that's, why customers should bet on you as a solution. And so kind of a roundabout way of answering that. And Pete has a good quote here. You're the best version of your product early on. So behind the scenes, fake the magic. Wizard of Oz test. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I think all those are really, really interesting. And we have a local startup here that essentially, they got to almost 5 figures million in revenue before they even had any tech to support what they were doing. They scaled everything with people. They proved out that they needed to do it. And, then they started looking at tech. So it was very low code early on, process automation, things like that, that helped to sequence what they were doing and serve their team. But the user didn't really see that. They didn't see all the things that happened behind the screen. They assumed it was tech. All they saw was an interface that gave them the outcome that they needed. And so I think like there's ways for you to build businesses that aren't super scalable from the start, that will help you learn about the mechanics, help you learn about the psychology of your users, how they buy. All of those things are super important.
Awesome. I just put a link in the chat there. Thanks, Pete, for all the comments today and tuning in. We actually use Pete's product on some of our projects. So check out Punchlist. I put a link in the bio there. It's a way for you to more collaboratively get feedback on websites that you're building, and the design elements and just all that kind of stuff. So really, really a great tool. So be sure to check it out. And thanks, Pete, for joining us today. Awesome. I think we can wrap it up. I don't see any more questions today. I think I can wrap it up. I'm going to talk about some of the events we have coming up, as I mentioned with Teresa. So let me share my screen. There we go. Awesome. So if you go to headway.io/events, you can learn more information. Obviously, if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can get select to be notified and updated about a specific live stream that you want to watch. But otherwise, you can head to the events page here and register and get notifications in your email, add it to your calendar, all that kind of stuff. So on June 15th, Kelsey from our development team will be talking about exploring advanced TypeScript. So maybe you have some TypeScript experience, but you want to level up. This is for you. Or if you're an advanced JavaScript developer and you're curious about TypeScript, you can maybe learn something here. But Kelsey said it's definitely for folks that are more familiar with TypeScript. So be sure to check that one out. As I said, June 23rd, Exploring Product with Teresa Torres. She'll be talking about continuous discovery habits with teams, with product teams, stuff like that. So it'll be a really great conversation with her. She has a new book out, so be sure to check it out. There's a link to her book on this event page as well. And then on the 24th, Billy from our design team will be talking about creating user flow diagrams from customer journey maps. So you did all the work, you have the customer journey maps created. So how do you create a good user experience, create the architecture for what the app or the tool will actually look like, and how do you do that in a good way, like have a strategy, feel more confident about putting those together rather than feeling like you're winging it all the time. So really, really great stuff. And be sure to check out our video library too. It's on the events page. It's also on our YouTube channel, all these videos. We also have stuff on our blog too as well. So if you're looking to learn more in-depth stuff with articles, we have stuff on our blog. And also, as Andrew mentioned before, we are hiring. So we have open positions on our website. So go to headway.io/careers or just go to our site and you'll find it. But we're hiring product, we're hiring design, development. So be sure to check those out. And yeah, I think that's it for me. Can stop sharing my screen. Bring Andrew back in. There we go. So yeah, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the live stream, open office hours is going to be once a month instead of every week. Gives us time to kind of like have a topic to talk about, like we did today with the pirate metrics. So stay tuned for what we'll do for next month, and we'll hopefully get a little bit ahead on our calendar so you can kind of see the schedule for the coming months. But Andrew, is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up today?
No, I don't think so. I think that was it. Hopefully, if you have an existing product or you don't yet, I would definitely check out the talk that Jacob mentioned here about like what metrics should you focus on when you're pre-product and how would you measure them and what would you how would you bucket some of those metrics in for your startup. And if you have an existing product and you're trying to apply some of these methods, definitely reach out. Would love to just chat and give some more specific advice on what to look for.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thanks, Andrew, for sharing all your knowledge and wisdom today. Thanks, Pete, for joining us and sharing your thoughts on the conversation. And everyone else, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. And we're always here to answer your questions. And everyone, have a great week. See you later.